Beneath the gilded chandeliers of Royal Albert Hall, elegance reigned, but not kindness. Tonight, the elite came to shine, to be seen, to heal the world with music. Yet one man, unnoticed and underdressed, would soon rewrite the entire night. Keanu Reeves wore no badge, no tuxedo, just a plain black button-down shirt tucked neatly into dark slacks. His leather shoes, dulled from years of wear, made no sound on the polished marble floor. His face, lined with quiet wisdom, carried a grace that seemed to bend the light around him, making him both present and invisible in a crowd designed to devour attention. He had no entourage, no press trailing him, no desire to be seen. He was here for the music, for the cause, for something deeper than the spotlight. At the front reception, a young woman in a red blazer stood behind a sleek podium, her fingers dancing across a tablet. Her name tag read Gala Liaison, Emily. She barely looked up as Keanu approached, her tight-lipped smile a reflex of someone accustomed to gatekeeping. "Name, so?" she asked, her voice clipped, eyes fixed on the screen. "Keanu Reeves," he said softly, his voice like a low tide, calm and unassuming. Emily paused, her fingers hovering. She blinked, glanced at him, then back at the tablet. Tap, scroll, tap again. Silence stretched like a held breath. "I'm sorry, Mr. Reeves," she said, her tone now tinged with discomfort. "I don't see your name here." Keanu smiled gently, the kind of smile that disarmed without effort. "It was a private invitation," he said. "I believe the team was told to expect me." Emily's brow furrowed. "Do you have a QR code or a formal confirmation email?" "No," he replied, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a small folded note, handwritten, the ink slightly smudged from his fingers. It was simple, unadorned, with a single initial at the bottom. See, he handed it to her, his movements deliberate, unhurried. Emily unfolded the note, her eyes scanning the words. She frowned, looked at Keanu, then back at the paper, as if his existence were a puzzle she couldn't solve. "I'll need to call my supervisor," she said, her voice wavering. Before Keanu could respond, a new presence sliced through the moment. "Emily," came a sharp whisper, like the hiss of a blade drawn from its sheath. Lady Vivica Thorne, one of the Gala's most powerful curators, stood before them. Her dove-gray gown clung to her like liquid silver, her platinum hair coiled into a bun so precise it seemed carved from marble. Her gaze swept over Keanu, from his unpolished shoes to his badgeless chest, a scanner searching for flaws. She was a woman who built empires with rules, and she wielded her authority like a scepter. "Is there an issue?" she asked, her voice velvet-wrapped steel, each word dripping with controlled disdain. Emily shifted uncomfortably. "He says he's invited, but he doesn't have credentials," she said, holding up the note as if it were evidence of a crime. Vivica's lips curved into a smile, polite but razor-sharp. "How quaint," she said, her eyes locking onto Keanu's. "So, I'm afraid this is a secure, invite-only event. We can't just take handwritten notes as credentials." Keanu met her gaze, his eyes steady, unshaken. "I understand," he said. "I was told to arrive quietly." Vivica's smile tightened, her composure a mask over something colder. "I'm sure you were," she said. "Still, there's a press entrance near the loading dock if you'd like to observe from there." A few guests nearby turned, their chuckles soft but pointed, like darts finding a target. Keanu nodded once, his face unreadable. "Thank you," he said, stepping back, not defeated, but deliberate, as if every movement were a choice. Emily's eyes flickered with something, guilt, perhaps, or unease, but Vivica had already turned away, her gown trailing like smoke. She waved a manicured hand toward security. "Have someone guide him out of the main hall, please," she said. "This isn't a place for improvisation." And so, the man who had given more than anyone in that room, who had come not for glory but for good, was quietly ushered to the side. The crowd parted for him, their whispers trailing like ripples in his wake. But Keanu wasn't leaving. Not yet. Not until the music played, and not until the truth broke through the artifice. Inside the grand hall, The royal music gala unfolded like a meticulously rehearsed symphony. Tables gleamed with crystal and silver, each arranged like a jewel in a crown. The guests, polished and poised, reflected the event's aura of benevolence, their laughter and conversation a carefully curated performance. At the heart of it all sat Lady Vivica Thorne, her silver gown shimmering under the chandeliers, her diamonds catching the light like stars. She was a conductor of this orchestra of power, her every gesture commanding attention. Old money donors flanked her left, their cufflinks glinting with inherited wealth. Rising philanthropists sat to her right, their eyes hungry for her approval. This was her night, her kingdom, built not just with money but with rules she expected to be obeyed. Yet, as she sipped her champagne, her gaze caught on a figure 5 rows back, a blemish in her perfect canvas. Keanu Reeves sat quietly, legs crossed, hands resting in his lap. No tuxedo, no name badge, no air of entitlement, just a man who seemed to belong nowhere and everywhere at once. Something in Vivica's spine tightened. He didn't fit. She leaned toward Elise Markham, the evening's MC, her voice low behind her flute. "Darling," who placed the man in black near the patrons section. Elise squinted, her lips twisting with amusement. "Is he with Cliff's team? He's not on the artist list. I thought he was one of your people." Vivica's eyes narrowed. "He most certainly is not." She lifted a finger, summoning a staff member. "A seating error," she said crisply. "Row E, seat 4. Correct it now." The staffer hesitated, his voice low. "Actually, he was placed there by Mr. Lenning from backstage. Apparently, he had a note." Vivica's brow arched, her voice icy. "A note? Is that the new gold standard for admission?" Before the staffer could answer, Vivica rose, the room shifting subtly in her wake. She glided across the marble, her heels clicking with purpose, her smile a weapon honed by years of navigating power. She stopped before Keanu, her presence towering despite her delicate frame. "I'm afraid there's been a little confusion," she said, her voice sweet enough to cut glass. "These seats are reserved for verified patrons and curated guests." Keanu looked up, his eyes calm, almost serene. "A staff member told me I could sit here," he said. "I don't mean to disrupt anything." Vivica's smile didn't waver, but her eyes flashed. "Of course," she said, "but I'm sure you understand we must protect the integrity of the room. Appearances are everything." Keanu glanced at the stage, then back at her. "I'm happy to move," he said, his voice steady, unhurried. She nodded curtly, turning away before he could stand. Whispers followed, laced with chuckles. "I thought he was a sound tech," one man murmured. "Is dressed like a roadie," another replied. As Keanu followed the usher to the back of the hall, Vivica returned to her seat, her satisfaction a quiet flame. Order had been restored, or so she thought. The lights dimmed, and a string quartet filled the hall with a soft overture, its notes weaving through the air like threads of silk. Waiters in black vests moved like ghosts, refilling glasses and presenting canapés so delicate they seemed more art than food. Yet beneath the elegance, something uglier was spreading. Laughter, not the warm, open kind, but the sharp, cultured chuckle of the privileged mocking an outsider. It began at table 9, where Sir Alistair Jennings, his family fortune a pillar of London's West End, leaned toward his neighbor. "Did you see that fellow shuffle to the back?" he smirked. "Poor chap thought it was open seating." Lady Ramsay, her wine glass poised, laughed softly. "I assumed he was stage crew, or perhaps one of those brooding fringe musicians." At table 6, Elise Markham whispered to a group of young arts patrons, "I was going to offer him a tie. He looked like he came from a funeral, or was, rehearsal." The laughter spread, not loud, but loud enough to carry. In the shadows at the hall's far end, Keanu sat on a folding chair, its metal frame a stark contrast to the opulence around him. No tablecloth, no nameplate, just a view of the stage. He didn't mind. He watched the musicians, his fingers loosely interlaced, his face lit by the soft glow of the performance. The music mattered. The cause, music therapy for the wounded, the forgotten, mattered. The laughter he could ignore. but he felt its weight, the way it landed like stones thrown at someone who refused to flinch. Vivica, from her throne at the center table, raised her glass, her smile a perfect crescent. "Do we still not know who he is?" someone asked, their curiosity faint. "No name, no badge, no introduction, no relevance," Vivica replied, her voice honey-laced with venom. "Maybe he's a mysterious donor who doesn't believe in tailoring," another guest quipped. The laughter swelled, eyes darting to the back of the room. Keanu didn't move, didn't react. A young waiter approached, his tray trembling slightly. "Sir, would you care for something?" he asked. Keanu looked up, his smile warm. "Thank you. That's very kind." The waiter nodded, startled by the sincerity. For a moment, his nervous posture softened. Vivica noticed, her eyes narrowing. Keanu's calm was a splinter under her skin. He hadn't defended himself, hadn't raised his voice. He simply existed, unshaken, and that was infuriating. Ridicule only works when the target breaks, and Keanu hadn't, not yet. The lights brightened as the first speakers concluded, applause rippling through the hall. The gala was a machine of precision, and Vivica took pride in its flawless rhythm. She exchanged a glance with Elise, signaling the transition to the donor recognition segment, where names would be called and smiles would be televised. Every moment was choreographed, until it wasn't. A live feed swept over the audience, and for a fleeting second, it landed on Keanu, alone in his corner, his black shirt stark against the glittering crowd. His face filled the screen behind the stage, 10 feet tall, unassuming yet undeniable. A hush fell, sharp and confused. Vivica's breath caught, her smile frozen. "Elise," she hissed, "cut the feed." Elise fumbled with her tablet, her face paling. The screen went black, but the damage was done. Murmurs spread, some amused, some curious. Vivica stood, just enough to catch the head of security's eye. She pointed. 2 guards moved through the aisles, their steps measured but firm. Keanu looked up as they approached. "So," one said, "we've had a request to relocate you. Please follow us." Keanu nodded, rising without protest, his movements fluid, deliberate. As he walked past the rows of gowns and tuxedos, whispers followed. "Elise," Vivica said, her voice low and dangerous, "fix this." Elise, rattled, stammered, "We're live." "Should I say something?" "Yes," Vivica snapped. "Say it was a seating error, a technical mistake." Anything but silence. Elise approached the microphone, her smile brittle. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, "we apologize for the brief interruption. A minor seating confusion has been corrected. Thank you for your understanding. And now, please enjoy the performance." The audience clapped, but the tension lingered. Keanu was gone, escorted to a side hallway, out of sight. Vivica sat, her hands still, her smile intact. But something coiled in her chest. He wasn't gone, not entirely, and he hadn't said a word. The backstage corridor smelled of varnished wood and old velvet, a world apart from the hall's grandeur. Dim and quiet, it was a place for performers and staff, not guests. Keanu stood near the staff lounge, hands in his pockets, watching a flickering screen that showed the gala in real time. The guards who had escorted him gave an awkward nod before leaving. They weren't unkind, just following orders. He didn't blame them. A stagehand passed, did a double take. "Wait, are you?" Keanu smiled, not answering. The stagehand blinked, muttered, "Right, sorry," and hurried off, as if recognizing him was a mistake. Keanu turned back to the screen. Vivica was there, laughing with Elise and a group of suited men, her smile a mask of triumph. She had won, for now, but Keanu hadn't come for her kingdom. He'd come for the music. A young woman with a headset rushed by, then stopped. "Sir, you shouldn't be here," she said, clutching her clipboard. "They told me to wait here," Keanu said calmly. She softened, thrown by his ease. "No one waits back here unless they're staff or talent." "I'm neither," he said, "but I'm not here to cause trouble." She hesitated, then handed him a water bottle from her tray. "If anyone asks, you're with me for a minute." "Thank you," Keanu said, his smile genuine. She nodded and vanished into the chaos. He sat on a bench beneath a faded poster, watching the screen. The gala continued, oblivious to the truth, that the man in the shadows had funded the instruments, the seats, the hope they celebrated. But Keanu could wait. The truth didn't need his voice, not yet. Vivica sat at her center table, her gown pooling around her like a silver tide. The violin solo had ended, the applause fading, but her mind was elsewhere. He was still here, a shadow she couldn't erase. She leaned toward Elise. "You said he was escorted out." "He was," Elise whispered. "I saw them take him backstage." "Then why are people whispering about him?" Vivica's voice was sharp. "Donors are asking, who was the man in black? Why was he removed?" Elise glanced at her tablet. Social media's picking up clips. The live stream caught it. There's speculation. Vivica's lips tightened. "Is not on any list. No sponsor, no talent, no credentials. So why is he still in my gala?" She stood, moving through a side door with the authority of someone who owned every inch of the hall. In the backstage corridor, a volunteer froze. "Have you seen a man in a black shirt, mid-40s, no badge?" Vivica asked. "He's near the stage left lounge," the volunteer stammered. "I thought he had clearance." Vivica found him, sitting calmly, watching the monitor. "Lady Thorne," Keanu said, his voice even. "This area is restricted," she said, her voice low, cutting. "I was told to wait here," he replied. "By whom?" "A young woman with a headset. I didn't catch her name." Vivica stepped closer. "You've distracted enough people, Mr. Reeves. This is a private event, and I won't allow chaos." "I didn't cause any chaos," he said gently. "I just came to listen." "You may think your silence is powerful," she said, "but in rooms like this, silence is irrelevance. No one knows your name, and no one cares." Keanu didn't react. "Leave," she whispered, trembling with fury. "Leave now, or I'll have you removed completely." He stood. "I will," he said, "if that's what you want." He walked past her, unhurried, and Vivica watched him go, her fists clenched. She had won every battle. So why did it feel like defeat? The hall hushed as the chamber piece faded, and a spotlight bloomed on the stage. Sir Cliff Richard stepped forward, his presence warm, timeless. The applause was thunderous. He smiled, touched his chest, and waited. "Thank you," he said, his voice mellow, unwavering. "It's an honor to be here with you, friends, patrons, believers in what music can do for hearts that need it most." Applause followed. Vivica straightened, her mask of control restored. Cliff continued. "We've raised over £6 million tonight for music therapy, for children with trauma, elderly patients with dementia, veterans with wounds deeper than skin." He paused, his voice softening. "But before I perform, I want to tell you something not on the program." The room stilled. Earlier tonight, someone was removed from this room. Vivica's breath caught. "Some of you saw him. A man in a black shirt, quiet, unfamiliar." Cliff glanced at the stage's edge, where curtains parted. He had no badge, no entrance, no recognition. But the only reason this gala wasn't canceled 3 months ago is because that man showed up, in silence, behind the scenes. Murmurs spread. Cliff's voice deepened. "When our funding collapsed, he didn't ask for a photo op or a seat. He asked, 'How much do you need?' And he gave it, quietly, anonymously." The screen lit up, showing Keanu backstage, watching. The hall exhaled. "You removed him," Cliff said, "but here's the reason we're here." No one spoke. The spotlight shifted to Keanu, half in shadow, his expression still. Whispers rippled. "Keanu Reeves. Is it really him?" Cliff's voice anchored the room. He didn't want a feature, didn't want a seat. But he gave more than any of us, not just money, but belief. When our clinics were shutting down, he called me and said, "Don't stop the music." Applause began, slow, then tidal. People stewed, a woman wiping tears, a man clapping fiercely. Vivica sat frozen, the applause swirling past her. Keanu nodded to Cliff, then lowered his gaze, accepting thanks he never sought. Cliff raised a hand. Sometimes, the most powerful presence says nothing at all. This song is for the man who showed us grace. The piano rang out, and Keanu, pushed to the margins, stood at the room's heart, even in its shadows. The ballad's final note lingered, fragile, unforgettable. The applause rose, reverent, like a prayer. Keanu had slipped back into the wings, but his presence remained. Vivica sat, bolted to her chair, her diamonds gleaming, but no one looked at her. Lord Beckett spoke to a therapist from Nairobi. So Alistair scribbled a grant in Keanu's name. Her voice, once gold, was weightless. She lifted her champagne, but no one joined. She was alone. Cliff stepped down, Keanu reappearing briefly. They shared a quiet word, a photo captured, Keanu smiling faintly, Cliff's hand on his shoulder. Vivica knew it would be tomorrow's headline. A camera flashed, not at her, past her. She hadn't been defeated, she'd been outgrown. Power isn't held by clenching, it's carried by giving. Keanu had given, and now stood at the center of her room. Vivica stood, nodded to no one, and walked to the exit. Her heels clicked like fading punctuation. No one followed. The silence was deafening. In a world of noise and status, the quietest act, showing up to serve, can shift everything. Keanu, badgeless, reminded royalty what dignity means. If this moved you, drop a like or I'm listening below. Share your city, your story, your silent heroes. We read every word.